Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Rangers Journal. This pod's about a wee dive into Davide Ancelotti and how, if we do appoint him, how we'll fare at Rangers. Tonight I'm joined by Stevie. How we doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. All good. Yourself?
No bad, no bad. Dino, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Looking forward to this pod, like.
I know. So, guys, I've got a few questions to go through on it, please, and I'm keen to know your take on it. Just a quick one before we dive right into it. Just your initial thoughts on him being linked. Stevie, we'll start with you, mate.
I was a wee bit surprised at first, to be frank, but at the same time, pretty much straight away, I'm thinking it's a really ambitious and bold move. To me, it shows that the new ownership are really going to put their hand in their pocket and they're going to back this guy, because there's not a chance this guy being entertaining the thought he was speaking to us if he wasn't getting proper backing, because we all know we need a lot more quality. So yeah, I think it's a very bold and ambitious appointment, if we get him, obviously. But no, very positive from my point of view. I think it's a lot of promise. You know, the guy, he's worked with his old man for 10 years at huge clubs around Europe. There's no way he's not picked up a lot of knowledge in that time. And I know I've heard people say, he's not experienced, but, we all know what happened with Souness, with Walter Smith, with Gerrard. And Jose Mourinho was a translator for Bobby Robson at Barcelona. And look what happened to him. So this guy served his apprenticeship. I'm very positive about it.
Good stuff. Do you know what about yourself?
Initially, I was a bit apprehensive, to be honest. Just to the fact is that another person and another project manager, I don't know if I could, mentally handle that. However, given and then I thought to myself, the calibre of player that this guy could attract could be game changing. So, and then look at it from a point of view of the guy's obviously a very good coach, and the way that football's evolving these days, managers aren't really the type of managers that we're used to. Maybe more coaches, and so as reasons that Stevie just alluded to as well, like imagine the response back in the early 90s when Walter got the gig. Do you know? Do you know what I mean? Like, it would have been like in today's world, it would have been absolutely mental. So I'm all for it now. I know you asked the initial thoughts, but that's where I'm at now.
No, listen, I think I'm the same. Once I first heard that, I was a wee bit unsure on the fence, and the more I've dove into it, and the more I've got myself excited. We're just showing you Randy's comment. Arteta was a rookie as well. And the two of you touched on it there. Experience, is that going to be an issue? Obviously, you can say that it's a risk because he doesn't have experience. But like you said, Stevie, we've had Gerrard, who that was his first managerial job. With Walter Smith, with Souness. So all those guys have all went on to be great Rangers managers, if not some of the best that we've ever had in Souness and Walter. So does that really matter, the experience, or are we looking too much into it? Steve, I'll start with you.
Sorry.
On you go, Stevie.
I was just going to say, I think those names that we've mentioned, I mean, they obviously had a grounding, like a big background in the Scottish and the British game. So, there is that. This guy, he had a bit of time at Everton, but obviously he's not got the same kind of insight that those guys had. However, he's also not tainted by failure. I look at a lot of the guys that were also in the kind of like high up in the bookies list, and I'm not saying they're bad managers, they're clearly not, but none of them are really like that inspiring. There was other names there that you're like, well, maybe it might work, but they've maybe not done so well in the recent jobs. So there's a bit of extra pressure for that. Whereas this guy's coming in with like a clean slate. Essentially, this is his first job, so it is high risk, but it's high reward. I think that's the way he's going to look at it as well. So I would like to see somebody Scottish on the coaching staff. I mentioned it in the group chat. I wouldn't mind seeing like a Neil McCann in there, just to get a bit of more knowledge of the kind of Scottish league, which they won't have. But obviously, if they're coming in, they're getting back, they might just view it, well, we're going to sign players that are much better than the rest of Scotland, so we can hopefully go in and blow it away. But I don't know. I would like to see some kind of like Scottish identity within the coaching staff.
Do you know what about you on his experience, mate? Is that a fear factor going into
it? I think the lack of experience being the head honcho. I mean, like as Stevie just said there, we could have got somebody like Sean Dyson, right? Who's, I mean, never won anything in his career, but he's been he was the driving force for Burnley, wasn't he? Getting him into the Premiership and being able to actually do well over a number of seasons. Right, okay, that's fair enough, but what's he actually achieved? And is he going to get a big gig? Things like that type of manager. He's a coach, and he's been his dad's won Champions Leagues. So you can't really knock that. And I mean, we could all maybe turn around and be a bit obtuse and suggest that he was only there because he's old man, things like that. I mean, I don't know too much about it, but I'm pretty sure his old man would put a lot of trust in him. And he's the one that's taking the training sessions. He's the one that's, in his dad's ear. Like, I've read more and more into Ancelotti, and the way that he works is he adapts. Imagine that at Rangers, somebody that adapts, eh? Fucking hell, excuse my language, sorry. But my point is, like, he's intelligent, and his experience comes with every job, but he's been a coach for quite a long period of time. Stevie said there's Jose Mourinho was a coach for a long period of time, went into management, had success because of the coaching career that he had built up. Obviously, Walter Smith being the assistant manager, and obviously he's before he was at Rangers. So I'm not too bothered about the lack of experience. However, one thing I would like to probably emphasise what Stevie said there, a Scottish person, but a Scottish person with a bit of experience. I wouldn't be against somebody like Neil McCann or Duncan Ferguson or somebody coming in who's maybe actually going to be the wee bit experience in Scottish football, but also the experience of Rangers, but also the person that might be the man manager. Because he's quite a young man, and he's so we don't know his side of things, and if he's a good coach, and apparently he's bringing his assistant who is an absolute wizard at set piece, things like that as well. So we've got to look at those elements of it and think, actually, well, we need that at Rangers. We need a good coach. We need somebody that can adapt to play against Kilmarnock, St Mirren, Kilmarnock, whoever, but then change to then play against Leipzig on a Thursday night or whoever, So I don't think the experience for me is going to be that much of an issue.
Can I come back? Sorry.
Yeah, on the Stevie, I come, mate.
Just, we're talking about this boy being the coach, and he is, like everybody says about Carlo, he's a great manager, he's a man manager. He doesn't do much of the coaching, he never has. He's always relied on his coaches to kind of take that responsibility. Alex Ferguson, he was supposed to be similar. But Ancelotti learned, when he was at AC Milan, he learned, I think it was Arrigo Sacchi, and he's like one of the best ever managers. So he's passed that knowledge into him, and Ancelotti's passing it into like his son. So there's so much knowledge between them, So I think, there's so much to be positive about if this is going to come off. Sorry, Dylan. Back to you.
No, I agree with both of you. Like I said, I'm really excited about it, and it takes me into my next question to you nicely. If we do, or if he does get appointed, what type of style do you expect? Do you expect him to be more of a coach, or do you expect him to go and do the manager role? Now, I think maybe in the past that it wouldn't have been the right fit for us because we didn't have the sporting director, etc. above him. But now with him coming in with the sporting director and technical director and all that above him, CEO, etc., I think he'll thrive. I'm just curious, do you guys think that it'll be more of a coaching role, or would he become like his dad, like a man manager and oversee it all? Go with you, mate.
I think the former, because he, as you just alluded to, he's quite been successful doing the coaching, and the way that we are going about it now, I think that did we not kind of like go the opposite way? We would get the manager, then the sporting director. We've went and got the sporting director first, and then getting the manager. I think that's maybe the first time we've done that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so I think doing that, we're maybe setting a new precedence here to say this is how we are going to be actually running the football club. We're going to be starting with the sporting director, and then we're going to be picking the manager slash coach. So so the manager side of the game, like sporting director is taking a lot of the responsibility that the manager used to do. So less of a responsibility and less pressure on him doing the sort of day-to-day running at a football club. The sporting director you'd think would hopefully do, and give him the opportunity to portray his excellent coaching skills and the knowledge that he has with the game, and his ability to get players to adapt to their surrounding and change and things like that. As I've been reading a lot of interesting stuff, and I think it would be, I used the word there, it would be obtuse to take him away from that, I think.
I agree, Stevie. What about yourself?
100%. I agree with what Dino said there. This guy's going to be in the building from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. He's going to be coaching all day. He's going to be running the show. And what you've just kind of touched on there with the structure, the sporting director, that's great. We're actually got a proper structure in place now where the manager or the coach, whatever, head coach, he can just focus solely on the first team, get that team prepared and not have to worry about the outside noise. Because, I know Clermont wasn't popular, but, he had faced so much difficulty with what else was going on in the club. That's not going to be an issue going forward. So it basically allows the coach to do what he's supposed to do. So, yeah, I absolutely. I'm sorry, there's a really good point there by, who was it? Yeah, it was somebody, was it Ian in the comments saying that Galim, the Spanish journalist, he's saying that this guy's a proper coach.
Yeah.
And that's the horse's mouth. He knows Spanish football inside out. So, yeah, he's going to be a brilliant coach for us.
So we did, obviously, Scotty had that the interview with LeConte on, and the guys in the chat, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's brilliant. Gives you a really good insight to not only what he does on a day-to-day basis, but sort of a wee bit how he is emotionally, how much his dad trusts him, and a little bit about his lifestyle growing up. So definitely go and watch that after this, and then make your mind up on it. Don't take it from us. Take it from the guy who's been there and seen him. My next question then goes to, because he is a coach, right? And we know that we've heard the stories about he was the top of his class, and his UFI license and stuff like that. Carlo Ancelotti, when he started management, the first trophy he won was 1999, right? The last trophy he won was last year, I think, or 2 years ago, 2003, 2004. He's been winning trophies for that long. So when you think about sort of Jose Mourinho, I think now he's tethered off to the end of his sort of managerial career. He's not in big jobs anymore. People say Ferguson would maybe struggle in this era to coach and be successful. My question is, has Ancelotti evolved with the game in recent times due to his son coming in and helping him out? Stevie?
I think his career actually was starting to peter out. When he went to Everton, I couldn't quite believe Everton were actually got Ancelotti. That was a shocker to me. But obviously then Real Madrid came back in from me. He's like, of course, he'd have walked to Madrid. So essentially he's really has had the absolute best players at his disposal in that time. But, you have to manage those players. So I think a lot of it is down to the fact that, he's got the best, or among the best players in the world at his disposal. But ultimately, he is extremely driven and ambitious, and I feel like Davide, or his son, is going to be exactly the same. There's no way he's come to Rangers just to be at Rangers. This guy's wanting to go to the top. So I almost hate to say it, but Rangers are getting treated like a stepping stone here. But ultimately, the guy's super ambitious. He wants to win. He wants to win titles with Rangers, which is fine with us, because it's going to be the kind of, I could see this guy, if he does well at Rangers, maybe ending up at Leeds. Do you know what I mean? Managing the Premier League, because he's seen it with Gerrard going to Villa and whatever. It's like you do well at Rangers or Celtic, you will get a move to the Premier League. That's just what happens. But, I think we'd all take that. Like, if he wins us 56 before them, great. Champions League qualification, do well in Europe, we'd be happy to see it, especially after the last, we've won 2 titles in the last 14, 15 years, and it's not good enough. So, yeah, I'd be quite fine with that.
And do you know what about you? Do you think that his dad, Carlo's evolution into being still such a great coach, do you think he's got anything to do with it?
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that his dad has played a massive part in things, and I would probably like to think as well that when the offer or opportunity of Rangers come along, I think his dad would have been saying, "Take it. That's a big club. Go there." I mean, at the end of the day, you do well at Rangers. Every single fan will adore you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know we're biased, but I mean, we're renowned for being the best fans in the world for a reason. Do you know what I mean? So when you're doing well at Rangers, you're going to be given God status. And as Steve said there, if you can give us 56 and then 57 and leave us in, we're here at the moment, and he could, if he leaves us there, do you know what I mean? You're going to get a thank from every single Rangers fan, and you'll be welcomed back with open arms any time. And by taking us from here to up there is then going to give the next person to come in to maintain that level, or perhaps take us even higher. But obviously that's a way in the future. But my point being is, he's got such an opportunity and to leave a legacy with us, and that's that's enough incentive for anything as far as I'm concerned.
He's definitely like influencing Real Madrid, because in that interview that you referred to there, Dylan, with Scotty and the journalist boy, he said that he preps all the subs, like he makes like he suggests the changes, he tells the subs exactly what to do, and they go and they make an impact, like they actually see it happen. So he's obviously got a really good tactical awareness. The fact that he can spot what's needing changed, and then it actually happens, that's great, because for too long we don't really have an impact off the bench. So, but he needs to get quality signings at his disposal, so that's key. But he's not going to come if that's not going to happen. So this is all like the right track.
Yeah, of course we need to remember that it's just speculation at this point, but I think it's probably the one that's got the most heat behind it. Obviously, there's massive outlets reporting it over in Italy and over in Spain and stuff like that, so I think there's traction there. I want to pick up Kevin's comment here. Do you guys think that he would look to emulate his father's career, or do you think he'd want to go on to be his own man, his own coach? Steve, I'll start with you, mate.
It's very hard to emulate what he's done. I mean, like you said, you can make an argument that Ancelotti is the best manager of the modern era. He's literally won titles in how many countries? England, Spain, Germany. He's now going to manage Brazil, probably the most famous international team in the world. The guy's kind of the pinnacle of management. He's one of the best, probably top 5 managers ever. So it's very difficult to emulate that. But he's going to want to try. It's what he's doing. He's not just like there to make up the numbers, but this would be a great start for him if he does well at Rangers, because obviously if it's a successful start, it's going to lead to bigger and better opportunities down the line for him. So yeah, he probably is driven. In his mind, he wants to go back to Real Madrid one day, and win their 19th European Cup or something. That's probably what he wants. Yeah. But why not? It's like he's got the best apprenticeship and best kind of knowledge that you could get from where he was. So yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, I'm sure he does. It'd be difficult to do, but yeah, he seems like a driven character, so that wouldn't surprise me. And
do you know what about yourself, mate? Do you think that he'll look to emulate his dad's career? Obviously, his dad started off with Parma and then worked his way to Juventus, AC Milan, and then a whole load of clubs. So you think that maybe he'll look to emulate that path, or he'll be the same type of manager as his dad?
I think you would want to do your old man proud, wouldn't you? So that's going to be in the back of my mind for any guy, as far as I'm concerned. And in my opinion, I genuinely think that Ancelotti is the best manager ever. But before this even came about, that's who I've always, not always, but recent times, he's for me the best manager ever. So as big shoes to fill for anybody. However, I think what he can do is he can go and actually make his own, as I said, make his own legacy, and in 30 years' time, people could our we could be having a conversation comparing the two Ancelottis. Do you know what I mean? It could be one of them. He's, as I said, he's anywhere that he goes after Rangers, if he does come to us, he will be able, that the name alone, his successes with being an assistant and then with Rangers, obviously, hopefully, and obviously being Ancelotti, he will be able to attract a high calibre player, irrespective of where he goes. So he will always have, I think, an opportunity to succeed in the game because of that. So yeah, I think he'll want to make his own legacy and be his own man. But as I said, definitely want to do his old man proud.
No, listen, I agree with you, and I think that as much as his dad's gave him the blueprint to go and be, this is how you do it and be successful, I think he'll still want to be his own man. And to touch on the interview that Scotty done, Laconte said he was very animated on the touchline, which is the polar opposite of his own man. His own man just seems to stand there and just chews chewing gum and let things happen, whereas he's a wee bit more emotional, he was saying, and they say that would fit well with us as a fan base, and I tend to agree with it. What I would come to you, Stevie. A lot of folk are wanting the likes of a Dyche sort of role in there, is British, knows what it takes to, or worked in the British game. He's quite hard-headed. What's the difference between him and Ancelotti, and why would, if you would pick Ancelotti, why would you pick him over Dyche per se?
I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, Sean Dyche, he did an amazing job at Burnley. I know he never won any trophies, but like success is relative when you're at that level. You know, what he did at Burnley, keeping them in the Premier League all those years, they went down, they came back up. You know, for over a long period of time, he was a great manager. But I feel with the new owners, I think they're looking more international. You know, even for like Rangers games getting broadcast in the States, Ancelotti's a name. You know, I think they're going for a big name. I know it's his son, it's no Carlo Ancelotti, but it's like, wow, you know, that means something. So I feel it kind of fits their profile as well when you look at who they appointed at Leeds. You know, they've got a certain way they want to play. And I think, whereas Dyche is more defensive, or he's clearly more defensive, stating obviously, like Michael Owen, but you know, it's like he's kind of like really defensive, keep it tight, grind out results. Whereas Rangers don't really need that. We need somebody who's going to come in and try and blow teams away, you know, like really attack and go for the jugular. And that's this guy's philosophy. It's all he's really known. You know, you don't go to Real Madrid or PSG or wherever and try and defend. You go out to try and blow teams away. And I think that's the mindset that Rangers really need. So I think there's a few factors going into it, but I think he really kind of fits the profile. He's younger, he's European, big name. You know, I think he ticks a lot of boxes. And if they are going to back him, which it seems like they are, I think it's a good recipe for success. He makes more sense to me than Sean Dyche.
And do you know what about yourself, mate? For the people in the chat and there's a couple who don't want Dyche, but for the people in the chat who do, what would be the opposing point to that?
Sorry, mate, I missed that there. What did you say?
I say for the people in the chat who want Dyche or who would rather Dyche come in as our manager, what's the opposing point to that? Why do you think Ancelotti would be a better fit in your eyes?
Because we need a manager, a coach, able to coach us to be able to have the ball for long periods of time, which I think large majority of our games in the league are essentially that. We've got 60+% possession, and people like Sean Dyche has been successful with building teams to have less of the ball. So unless Sean Dyche is going to come in and manage us for when we play Celtic and in Europe, then for me it's a no because of that. We need somebody that's going to be able to coach a team that's going to be comfortable on the ball and be able to dominate again.
No,
like,
listen. Oh, sorry, you know, I thought you were finished.
I'm just going to say, I use our neighbours as a comparison, like Ange did with Celtic when he came in, and Brendan's kind of tweaked that, but they still are you watch them play, they're comfortable on the ball, on the press, attacking. We need somebody that's able to do that.
Listen, I agree with you, and I think he's made great points here. Just on Sean Dyche, again, we've got the Brown Bros interviews up on Sean Dyche. So again, go and watch that, guys. Give it a like and a share as well. It'll give you the lowdown on Dyche. Again, make your own mind up. Don't need to listen to us. We're just giving you our opinions on it. I want to come to his time at sort of Everton, and obviously worked with Thelwell. And apparently they wanted him to become the Everton manager in 2023, I think it was. And he knocked it back. Do you think that's where this links came from? And if so, if he does join, do you think that would be a good partnership, Stevie, for they two to start working together again?
I do, yeah. I've kind of read something similar that he had a great reputation at Everton, was really highly thought of. And like you say, the fact they've got an existing relationship for that time, that only bodes well. That's like a kind of smooth transition into like him joining the club. There's a familiar face. How good is that for like new signings? He already knows the type of players he likes. So straight away, there's no that like initial getting to know you, how you work, whatever. Like they've got that in the bank. So straight away, that's like a huge plus point. Can I just quickly come back to Smoke Madraw in the comments? What a great name, by the way. He suggested Bielsa. I would love to see Bielsa Rangers manager. It's not going to happen, but I mean, that's a great shout. I mean, what a guy that man is. But yeah, back to your point, mate. I think it's definitely has something to do with the link, because I've obviously got that existing relationship. And again, he ticks so many boxes, and that just adds to it. So the more we talk about this, the more it makes sense. Just hopefully it happens.
Do you know yourself, mate? You're on mute, Dino.
Yellow card. I think the relationship, it's everything's fallen into place. We go for Kevin Thelwell. So Kevin Thelwell, I mean, maybe I'm putting 2 and 2 together and making 5, but Kevin Thelwell's been interviewed, right? Okay, so we're going to need to get a manager. Well, when I was at Everton, we wanted Davide to be the manager. Do you know what I mean? So that's definitely come up in conversation as far as I'm concerned. So it's everything's fallen into place if you think about it. The fact that Everton thought of him highly enough to take over the reins from his dad a couple of years ago. So what he would have been 34? Do you know what I mean? So that's big job for a 34-year-old, put it that way. So yeah, the connection there, and as I said, everything's fallen into place.
I think as well, I don't know if you've seen, but I think it was Alex Iwobi. It was on a podcast, and the guys were asking, what's it like when working under Ancelotti, Carlo? And he says that when he walks into a room, the room just goes silent. He's got that much aura. And they asked him what was like in training, and he says he never took training. It was his boy. His boy took the training, done the tactics, and they were all shocked. They're like, "What? His boy and Duncan Ferguson at Everton at the time." And again, I go back to the interview that Scotty done, and Laconte says that his dad's more of a, how do you put it, like a not a no formation, but he lets the players go and find the gaps themselves and make things happen themselves. Obviously gives them a structure, but apparently Davide is a lot more rigid in how he wants to play. And also that he gets great relationships with the players. And I think that's what we need. And I brought up the comment earlier there about beating the low block. I think that it would be ideal for somebody like that who's a coach to come in and coach these our players, current crop of players, never mind the new players we maybe bring in, to go and beat the sort of low blocks in the league. Stevie, do you agree with that, or do you think it's a different approach needed?
No, I concur. It makes perfect sense. I think especially the fact that he's obviously new to being in the main gig himself, so it kind of makes sense that to start off with, he will be like a proper 24/7 coach. But hopefully, as time progresses and he becomes more successful, then he kind of progresses into like how his old man did it. we're more or less like a man. He might always be a coach, but he might step back and just, you've got that trust in your players at that point where you can almost kind of step back and the quality that's out there, they'll do the job. Like Walter Smith, I know he was there for a long time, but it got to the point with him, like he would just give a player a look and then you knew what to do. He was that trusted and confident in the players and respected. So I suppose the manager's kind of like the new guy, Ancelotti Jr., he's got to kind of build it up, and obviously we need a lot of coaching. If it's a lot of the same players plus some new players, it's going to take a lot of work. But over time, I can see him kind of progressing, maybe getting away from the coaching a wee bit. But that comes with success. So hopefully that happens. But yeah, he'll be
Sorry, Steve, I thought you were done there, mate. Same question you made. Do you think that, I've maybe asked this question around about way before earlier on, but do you think like the difference between Ancelotti just standing back, because at the same time he's managing Real Madrid, who are the best players in the world, so he can allow Madrid to go and do that. We've seen this, when you don't give this Rangers team a structure or an idea to how to go and execute something, they seem to struggle. To break teams down, they seem to struggle on the ball, and they just wait for moments to happen. So do you think this guy is going to come in and maybe take a wee bit from his dad and let the fancy players like Hamza, etc., to go and express themselves, but also give them a system to go and then execute and hopefully break down the low block?
Aye, so what I think will be done is that the players that we will sign will have a higher level of football and IQ. So they're not stuck in the centre circle thinking, what am I going to do with the ball? What do I do here? I'll be there, I'll pass it to left again, I'll pass it to Tav again. So you'll actually get somebody on the ball who's like, do you know what I mean? Like, we worked on this in training, and then, I think there'll be both sides of it. There will be the structure there, but again, going back to what I'd said earlier on, the players are going to be coached in a way where they will adapt. So they're going to have to be intelligent. You have to have a certain level of football and IQ, and a lot of the players that we have don't have that, because they're like rabbits stuck in headlights half the time, wondering how they've got a football at their feet. Do you know what I mean? So I think both sides of it, Dylan, will definitely be part of the philosophy.
Can I come back quickly?
Aye, Steve, on you go,
he needs to basically create an identity and really stamp a philosophy on the squad. That's what we need. It's that direction which we've not had for a long time. Once that's in place, they can grow. But as you have both said, and have said in the comments, that comes with quality of player. So ultimately, that's what's going to decide it for us.
I'm glad you brought quality of player up, because it takes me nicely into my next question. He's obviously worked with the best players in the world, all right, with Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Junior, Kylian Mbappe. But not only that, he's also worked with, and this is what I find that swayed me towards him a bit more, players who are like older than him, but really, really respect him and follow him, like Dani Carvajal, Milito, Toni Kroos, Modric. These players are roughly the same age, if not older than him. And if they're following out his instructions when he's never been a football player, it must tell you that the guy's got some sort of footballing brain that these high-level players are going to take in and listen to. And then my next point would be, how does he then adapt to coming and working with, let's not beat about the bush, lower level standard of players at Rangers? So, I'll come to you on that one. Do you think he'll be able to cope all right? Do you think that transition will be all right there?
I think the transition will be made better, because, not all intelligent players have a high price tag. So I do think that there'll be intelligent players that are identified to come in order to help him, and then, like, played football at a low level in comparison, but you played better when there was better players on the park. I played better when I played with intelligent players. So there will be an element of that. There's just too many players in our current squad that aren't intelligent enough. If you've got a handful of players that have got a good football and IQ, then the rest will all fall into place as far as I'm concerned.
Stevie, what about yourself, mate?
The guy's sharp. He speaks 5 languages. He's supposed to be one of the best coaches. Like you said, they're top of his coaching class and whatever. So he's obviously got a great background, and I think it's a lot about ambition as well. Obviously, he's used to, like you said, working with some of the absolute best players on the planet, and they respected him. So you mentioned like Carlo walking into a room and having respect. I think when this guy goes into the training pitch, the Rangers players are going to be like, this guy just coming for playing with like Jude, or training Jude Bellingham. I don't need to be my best here. That gets respect straight away. He's going to raise that standard. A bit like Gerrard. When he came in, it was like, well, it's Steven Gerrard. I think he'll quickly see who's up to it and who's not. I expect a big turnover of players in the summer. I think we're all pretty much agreed on that a lot of players should leave. So it's going to be a lot of business, and it will take time to kind of gel. But again, if whoever's coming in, it's going to be a better quality than what we've got, or it should be anyway. With his contacts, and he's got to have a huge network of talent everywhere. I kind of keep hoping, like since it's got announced, I keep thinking we're going to get another Gennaro Gattuso, like another 18-year-old absolute diamond. Something like that would be great. But it's a possibility. It's like just on his name alone, like as I've said, there's so many possibilities. So yeah, the more I talk about it, I'm getting so excited. So fingers crossed it happens.
No, listen, I was the same, mate. I was up all night last night doing about it. Listen, I'll throw this to you as well, and I'll throw it to guys in the chat. Obviously, that he's Italian, right? So, and he's come up through AC Milan's youth, right? He's only sort of 34, so he's still quite young. He's Italian. He's worked in Spain and Madrid, and also his dad's now going to take the Brazilian team. Do you think, or give me some names if you have any in the chat as well, do you think that you'll be able to give farewell or people some ideas of like Italian youngsters, Spanish youngsters out of contract, Madrid players, young Madrid players, and also will he use that connection with his dad and the Brazilian team to say, listen, I've got maybe the next Endrick, not per se that level, but this guy who can maybe do really well for Rangers. I want to know what you think of that. Come to you first, mate.
Well, being quite honest, there's not been many successful Brazilians that have put on the famous shirt. However, in context of what you're saying, yes, I do believe that his contacts and his dad's contacts in the game, we could reap the benefits of. And it was maybe not for a player, but like opening a network for perhaps the team that player plays for as well. Things like that, building relationships for, the future and things like that. Again, like Stevie, there's just so many different possibilities, isn't there? And I think that given that, as I said, the name alone, you're going to be wanting. There's players that are going to be wanting to play for them just on the name. So it's going to give people more of an incentive to like, well, I'm going to be playing for Ancelotti, and he was just assistant manager at Real Madrid and won the Champions League and what have you, things like that. So if you're a young player, you're going to be wanting that on your CV to then think, well, if I can get to Rangers and they've now got a relationship with Leeds, I can be in the Premier League in 4 years' time. I'm going to make the move from Brazil or Italy or wherever. I do think that it will open a lot of avenues, that's for sure.
Stevie, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's, football's a worldwide business. Talk about Brazilian players. I think 95% of the Brazilian squad plays abroad. I think that's why Ancelotti's not actually going to live in Brazil. They struck a deal. He's like, look, most of the players aren't playing in Brazil. If you're any good at Brazil, you tend to leave the country when you're really young. Like you mentioned, Endrick, I think he was like 17 when he left the country. So, yeah, that's another market that we can hopefully tap into. It's obviously through his old man, but I think somebody joked the other day about bringing your dad to work day with Carlo. It kind of makes sense, it's like use that resource, like something that we've now got at our fingertips potentially. So you'd be daft naughty. But again, I think a lot of the new signings, like we've touched on the sporting director, they're going to like deep dive everything about who we're signing, not just their games, but their training record. really look at their injuries if they're fit or whatever. Like proper due diligence on players, which we've not done, clearly. There's been far too many players that we've signed that have been crocked for a long time within a couple of weeks or months. And I really hope to see the end of that as part of this new regime, which it seems is going to happen because they're professional, like from top to bottom, everything they're talking about. The club's going to be run much better, which we all need. Rangers really, really need that kind of structure and that professionalism, which probably hasn't been there. So, yeah, with signings like that, yeah, I think there's endless possibilities. But again, the player's got to meet the profile. It's going to have a sell-on value. If he ticks all those boxes, yeah, why not?
No, listen, I agree. The reason I asked it is because I think about when Gerrard came, he brought sort of like Ryan Kent with him as well, who was really unknown to us anyway, and he turned out to be a decent enough player for us. And also, I heard Andy Hardy talking on the scoreboard as well, saying that the amount of, or maybe not the scoreboard, the amount of players that came to Rangers because of Steven Gerrard and who he was, he actually sort of convinced them to come and do that, join the project. So I think the same could happen. I mean, it's Ancelotti. Coming to Curry's comment here, does this appointment point in direction of European competitions? Again, going back to Scotty's interview, if you've not saw it, go and watch it and listen to what the boy says. He says that he thinks Rangers is a perfect club for him. He doesn't think he wants to stay or start at a big league, like a Serie A or a Premier League, because Rangers is only sort of, he can come here, he can win trophies, do well. He's also got European competition, but again, it's not like it's if he goes to Sevilla where he has to go and compete in that, even though we're expecting him to. What do you guys think of that? What do you think his expectations would be if he did have to come in his first season? What does he have to hit for you guys? Stevie, sorry.
I'd go, you try and win the league, win a cup. A couple of trophies, really, and go as far in Europe as you can go. I know it's a big ask because obviously we're there, they've got quality in their squad, but I don't think have they improved on last season? I'm not so sure if they have. We've just got far worse, essentially. We've dropped off completely. So I think in a bigger league, like you've mentioned there, it's really difficult to make an impact, straight away. Whereas at Rangers, if you get the signings correct, and you add quality, they can really challenge for the title. I've no doubt about that. You'll get the right signings. Probably need about 8 or 9, maybe more. I don't know. I've definitely a few. But yeah, try and win the league. I mean, you always need to try and win the league when you're Rangers. So yeah, if he's coming in, probably never have a better chance with the new ownership. Might be difficult in the first year because it could take time to gel. But ultimately, it's win a couple of trophies and going far as you can. I think we'll have to see about Europe. I mean, I'd forsake like Europe for a terrible season in Europe, but we win the league, we'd all accept that next season because we have done well for the last half a dozen years in Europe, like really well, if it's part of the building process. But yeah, that's got to be the aim if he's coming in. I'm sure that's what he's thinking as well. He's not coming in to like just, have a repeat of this season. He wants to go and try and win the title because ultimately, the better we do, the better he does longer term.
And do you know what, be yourself, mate? Would you be happy if he came in and won the league, or does he have to do a wee bit more than that? Or would you happy if he came in and just won a cup? What's his expectations to come in this first season for you?
I think he's going to be in a harder position than Gerrard from when Gerrard came in. Gerrard's remit was to close the gap, get us competing again domestically, and Europe's just a bonus. And it just so happened that we were set up to play well in Europe from when he came in. But if you think about it, we were unlucky. We got robbed in Russia, didn't we? And we would have got out that group. So that was his first season, with the very first qualifying stage. So Gerrard had a bit more flexibility. I don't think he's going to be given that amount of flexibility, if I'm being honest. I think because we've been starved of success, I think that there's going to be more pressure on him to deliver in his first season. And I think I'm optimistic that his transfer budget will reflect that. I think the sounds that are coming, Dave King's interviewing Talk Sport, things like that, just be things that I've just got a gut feeling that he's going to get a good amount of money to actually invest in the squad, and that's reflective, as I said, on what I think the expectations are going to be from the board and whatnot. And winning the league is like, you don't win the league, you're you know what I mean, you could be looking of maybe losing your job, if as far as I'm concerned, as one of them. And winning the cups, if a treble's probably something that they've said, we want you to win a treble. In Europe, if he's able to equal, what we did this season, not make the Champions League, but get to the quarters of the Europa League, that's going to be a good season for us. And winning the league and winning the 2 cups, that's a successful season. And I don't think we should be looking for anything less than that.
I'm maybe getting a bit ahead of myself. I think that would be a dream, what Dean's just said. But ultimately, we've not been competitive at all this season. So I want to see a lot more consistency and a lot more competitive. Actually have a title race. If we were not to win the league next season, I wouldn't say get rid of the guy. It just depends on how we progress. But, for too long, since Gerrard left, ultimately, we've not really been competitive in the league. So I want to see more consistency and actually challenging for the title. And then we'll see how we progress from there.
That's good. One of the reasons why I'd said that, to come back in there, was Dick Advocat, when he came in, he was, you've got to win the league, you've got to win the treble, you've got to do well in Europe. Here's however many millions, do it. And he did do that. And I'm just using that as my comparison. And I think that's going to be what the board are going to be wanting from him, because I think we're going to get a good bit of coin to spend.
Yeah,
you're getting me excited here, mate.
What's that?
You're getting me excited here. Advocat was spending about £7 million every 2 days. He bought and invested. That was a huge rebuild. He really just went out and bought international players. It was a great season, tremendous.
If he can bring in a Kanchelskis and a McCann for either wing, and a Rod Wallace up front.
No, listen,
100%.
I think the chats here are kind of split. They want European success, some of them want a title. I think it's a catch-22, or maybe no, that's the right saying for it, but if you win the league, it brings European, you have a better chance of going and qualifying, do you know what I mean? So, and I think I put Doug's comment up, I think he's right. I wouldn't be upset if he didn't win the league. It depends what the margin is, to be honest. If we don't see progress in something's not really right. But if he's close and there's a title challenge there, he wins a Scottish Cup and a League Cup and he does well in Europe, I think that's a successful season for a guy who's cutting his teeth as his first manager's job. Just on that as well, if this is the route Rangers are going to go down, do you guys think that he is the top project manager that we could go for? Because a lot of people, even I seen a STV News clip there saying that he's so highly respected and sought after. And my thought was, is there anybody else out there? And I'm not talking about a Knutson or a Bielsa, somebody that's not a manager per se, or has just started, and even take out Fabregas, who's a year in, somebody who's just sort of starting out, or an assistant manager that you guys think would be a better option? Stevie.
I mean, like I said, the list that was there, to me, he's the most exciting choice. Because before that, I was kind of thinking about somebody really experienced. It wasn't going to happen now, but David Moyes, after he left West Ham, when he was free, I thought what an appointment he would be for Rangers or Scotland, whatever. But with regards younger guys, you kind of took the guy's name on mouth of Fabregas. He was the one that was kind of jumping out at me. Done a really good job over in Italy. But Como, the richest club in Italy, they're absolutely beyond minted. So I think he's going to stay there. I don't know. Do you know any young coaches that you could think of?
Nah, to be quite honest with you, there wasn't anybody that I thought, because I'll be honest, as I said earlier, I wasn't thinking the project manager was the way that we should be going down. But when you analyse it in detail, then potentially a good shout. I thought, Patrick Vieira for Genoa. Well, my mate actually messaged me and I was like, that's actually a good shout. Patrick Vieira, that was somebody I would like to have seen at Ibrox. So he's obviously slightly older than Fabregas, but he's not been managing for too long, as I'm led to believe. But I think Ancelotti's probably the best project manager candidate that you could think of.
Sorry, one guy, the Strasbourg guy, Liam Rossiner, we've mentioned him before. He's a good shout. He's so well regarded in the game, but Chelsea have got him. He's at Strasbourg, part of that group. But I think he's kind of similar to what we're looking at with Ancelotti. There's a lot of kind of promise there, so you kind of similar mould. What about yourself, Dylan?
No, I think that there wasn't a name that I had even thought about, or a lot of people had even thought about. But the more that I looked into it, the more I'm sold on it. I mean, the guy's worked with world-class players. He's won 2 Champions Leagues, and if it's his team and his tactics and training, and it's just as good as he's winning it as his dad's winning it for me. If he's setting up the team to go and play, and his dad's overseeing it and making the subs, and then he's got just as much as a winner's medal as obviously the manager. I know they get a medal, but you know what I mean. He's got just as much say in that team if he's taking the training and putting the team out. And just probably my final question, or last couple. You talked about bringing in somebody with a Scottish contingent there to work with them. Who would be and somebody in the comments said earlier on about Duncan Ferguson, who would be your ideal choice? Would it be like a Neil McCann or a Kevin Thompson coming up, or Duncan Ferguson himself? Go back to you, mate. Who would you be your ideal sort of second assistant?
That's a tough one. I think the ideal second assistant would have to reflect on the person that David is, so be able to do the things that he doesn't do, if that makes sense. So I know I'm struggling to make an answer, because I think of every single person that you said there, especially the latter two, McCann and Thompson, I think probably because we've seen him in the media a lot over the years and speaking at Rangers, and tactically and things like that, and not so much a big dunk because he's obviously been down south and Inverness and Forest Green, whatever. But he would probably be the type of person that you would know for a fact that he would go through you if your standards are dropping. So that would be somebody I would like to be at Ibrox, if that's something, a part of David's personality that he doesn't have. So it's somebody that could, I can't think of the word, somebody that complements him. That's the word I was looking for. And whatever one that is, that's my ideal candidate. So it's only until I guess I know David, I would be able to give you an answer there. Sorry, mate, but
no, you're fine. Stevie, what about yourself, mate?
I'd echo what Dean just said. I mean, I think, so you said as well, Kevin Thompson, we've had him on here on the journal, and he comes across so well.
Aye.
He's got a link to Walter Smith. He really knows the standard of the club. Intelligent guy. I think he would work really well with Ancelotti. But Big Dunk, I really like that idea. I said Neil McCann in the group chat earlier, and I still think Neil McCann would be good. So pretty much any of those three I'd be happy with, but maybe two of them, you never know. Get Big Dunk and one of the others. But just, imagine all fun with Big Dunk on the bench. That would just be fantastic. It really would. Probably on the pitch.
It'd be cinema, that's for sure. Just on to my last question. Barry Ferguson's comments today. I've just watched his presser not long ago before we started there, before we came live, and he says you'll see in a few days or a week or so things are starting to move. Do you think that he's maybe been told that, or does that tell you that they're singling out sort of the guy to take over? Steve, I'll come to you on that. What do you make his comments? Stevie's froze. Do you know? What do you make of Barry Ferguson's comments?
Stevie.
Nah, Stevie's frozen though.
He's disappeared on my screen.
I'll remove him now. I don't know. So can you hear me?
Aye.
I'm just saying, what do you make of Barry Ferguson's comment saying that things are starting to move and we'll see maybe in a couple of days or a week's time or so? Do you think that means that things are moving on the manager front, or do you think that's more of a takeover comment, or both?
Well, I think you might actually might be a 2-for-1 there, if I'm being quite honest with you. Because Rangers have cancelled all stadium tours on Friday, so
Right.
they're not going to be cancelling stadium tours for I'd imagine it'd be a relatively major thing, wouldn't it? So
yeah,
I think it'd be Friday. You might hear of the announcement of the takeover or managerial position, or both of them. Definitely something I think big is going to be happening on Friday, and so that's obviously what Barry was kind of suggesting today. I mean, they both seem to be, close to getting done or being done. So, you might just see the managerial Ancelotti sitting next to Paddy McCarthy in the blue room. Who knows?
No, mate, I think you're right. Listen, it's exciting times ahead regardless. I don't know what happened to Stevie there. Seen somebody in the comments saying that he won the steering competition, so that's after whoever that was. Well, listen, guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, thanks for your shouts and your comments and interacting with us. Like I said, if you've not seen Scotty's interview, go and watch it. He's got another one out with a guy for the breakdown on Sean Dyche as well. I've not watched that yet, but I'm assuming it'll be just as good as the Davide Ancelotti one. Do you know anything else before we go, mate?
No, I just want to give a wee shout out to our sponsors of To The Match I Go. They are a family bespoke company that have memorabilia for a lot of Rangers stuff, some other teams and other sports. So go on over, check their website out. It's coming up to Father's Day, so there's a lot of stuff there I'd love to give my old man. And if you actually use the code Journal10, you get 10% off. So yeah, and we're actually holding a wee competition as well. So subscribe to the channel, like their Facebook page, take a screenshot of both, and you get entered into a draw for when we get to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, and you can win a signed photo frame of Colin Steen and Willie Johnston. So as I said, coming up to Father's Day, ideal gift. So get involved in that, folks. But that's it, Dylan.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Thanks for that. And again, guys, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Remember that's free as well. And every night's a Rangers Journal night.